Meeting of the Senate Standing Committee on Education will come to order. If you would, please silence your phones. If you wish to speak today in front of the committee, you need to sign in at the sign-up sheet at the corner. And after about 2 minutes, that sign-up sheet will be collected so we can keep that in order. As I stated earlier, there's an overflow room in room 154. As a reminder to members, we now have a 1-minute limit on vote explanations. Before we start, I would like to make an announcement, and we'll have introductions. We have a few post-secondary groups here today. We have some individuals representing the Association of Independent Kentucky Colleges and Universities. If you would kind of step in and make yourselves known. We have Dr. Burton Webb, the University of Pikeville. We have Dr. Joe Hopkins, president of Campbellsville University. We have Mr. Brian Lewis, president of Transylvania University. We have Dr. Jerry Jackson, chancellor of the University of the Cumberlands. We have Dr. Leslie Reiser, executive vice president for institutional advancement, University of Cumberlands. Mr. Mason Dyer, president of the Association of Independent Kentucky Colleges and Universities. If we could make these people feel welcome this morning. Many of our members spoke to your group earlier, and we really appreciate the robust conversation on education in Kentucky. Thanks. Next, we also have individuals from the Kentucky Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators and the Kentucky Association for College Admission Counseling. If you would please stand at this time to be recognized. Please make them feel welcome. I believe Senator Thomas has a few special guests as well.
Thank you, Chairman West. We also have here today, our aspiring educators, and we talk about the teacher shortage. And one of the ways to address that is to get our young people involved in education earlier, and wanting to become teachers earlier. And we have a number of them today. With your permission, Senator West, I'd like to ask all our aspiring educators here today, teachers to be to stand, and let's give them a round of applause.
Do we have any other members with introductions or special guests? Seeing none, Mariah, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Here.
Senator Funky Fromeyer.
Present.
Senator Givens. Here. Senator Higdon. Senator Meredith. Here. Senator Neal. Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas.
Here.
Senator Tishner. Senator Wilson.
Here.
Senator Wise.
Here.
Senator Williams.
Here.
Chair West.
Here. We are going to proceed. We have 4 bills for consideration today. We are actually going to follow the sheet today. We're going to follow the order as presented. First up is Senate Bill 5. That is Senator Howe. If you could proceed to the table.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Introduce yourself and please proceed.
Jason Howell, 1st Senate District. I believe there is a committee sub in this.
There is. Is there a motion on the committee sub? Senator Tishner with the motion, second by Senator Funky Fromeyer. All those in favor of the Senate committee sub, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Committee sub is in front of us. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of house cleaning things. This bill throughout talks about parents and guardians as applying to both. I'll use them interchangeably, but I mean both when I do, just to eliminate any confusion on that. And also, all the days that I'm referencing here are for business days, not actual calendar days. And all these time frames that we talk about, there's 7, 10, 30-day time frames. All of those have an option to be mutually agreed to be extended. So I just wanted to clean that up. It would get in the way when we started talking about the guts of the bill. Mr. Chairman, this bill is set to address some information that parents might deem to be harmful to their kids that comes out in public schools. This bill's purpose is to guarantee the parents' involvement to end their child's access to this material that they may believe is harmful to their family values and interest. It defines sex-related materials, programs, or events that a parent may consider to be offensive or unsuitable to the minors. It directs the boards of education to adopt a procedure to address the parent concerns over harmful material, and it outlines a process for all of this to work. And that process first requires a parent, upon identifying material, to write a detailed written complaint, and the statute directs what has to be in the written complaint. And then within 7 business days, the principal at that child's school must do an investigation and decide if the material is to remain, be removed, or to be restricted in some manner. If the content is a program or event, the principal must decide if that program or event is eligible for students to be viewed in the future. And within 10 days of the filing of the complaint, the principal must get with the parent or guardian and inform them of his or her decision about the material that's being questioned in the complaint. After that, the parent can either accept that decision and move on. If the parent does not like the principal's decision, then the parent has the right to appeal the principal's decision to the school board directly. This board must then perform a substantive administrative review, and it cannot delegate this responsibility to any person or entity. This section guarantees parent input in the board meeting when this policy or when this material or event is being reviewed. And within 30 days of the appeal, the school board must have a meeting and address these issues. In addressing these issues, they must evaluate this in the open meeting. There are allowances for the Open Meetings Act where they can go in executive session and discuss some things, but they must come out of the executive session and vote on these issues as a school board. Within 15 days of this disposition, the district must post the decision on the district's website, and it must publish the decision along with the votes of the school board members in the newspaper with the largest circulation in that county. Additionally, at that point, if the parent still doesn't like the school board's decision, then that parent may elect to opt out their children from the material or the event that they believe to be in dispute, and deal with their own children accordingly. Additionally, this bill directs the Kentucky Department of Education to adopt a model policy for this complaint resolution process, and there is an emergency clause on it. That's the gist of the bill. I'd be happy to entertain any questions from any of the members.
At this time, the committee will entertain questions. Senator Tishner.
Thank you, Senator Howell. I appreciate this legislation. It's very needed, and I think the crowd here indicates that there might be some misinformation about what this bill does. Would you mind reading through the description, word for word, of harmful to minors and that definition?
Sure.
If you don't mind.
Get my reading glasses out there. So the information that you ask about is contained in Section 1A, and it's materials, programs, or events that contain the exposure in an obscene manner of the unclothed or apparently unclothed human male or female genitals, pubic area, or buttocks of the female breast, or visual depictions of sexual acts or simulations of sexual acts, or explicit written descriptions of sexual acts.
Do you mind doing B and C too?
Sure.
Thanks.
And Section B is taken as a whole, appeal to the prurient interest in sex or C, is patently offensive or prevailing standards regarding what is suitable to minors.
Okay, thank you. One of the things I think that's important about this definition, we have currently in our statute, KR 531, I believe, if I don't have my numbers backwards, KRS 531, an obscenity statute that also defines obscene materials for minors in this similar manner. And I think what this definition does, it broadens the term for a parent to bring forward anything that would have contained these types of materials within them or appeal to the prurient interest. And it broadens the term and the definition that we currently have in our statute. And I think it's a great definition. I think, when we're looking at this statute, we have to consider our schools' interest is really in educating our children. And are these the manners and the matters and the materials that we want to educate our children on? And I personally think that belongs in the home, and doesn't belong in a classroom. And I think we can be backed up by that by long-standing statutes on obscenity, both at the federal and the state level as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I just think it's important to note that this is not a criminal statute. This is an issue dealing in the civil arena and not in a law arena. But there's different interpretations of everything. I think what we were trying to accomplish here with the work that was done on this statute is to afford parents as much control and as much control within their local communities as possible. Something that may be viewed a certain way, a material or event that might be viewed a certain way in Fulton County, might be viewed differently by parents or school systems in Fayette County. And this we took great effort to make every effort possible to allow as much local influence in this as we could, because parents view things different ways in different parts of our state. We have a very diverse state. We have a lot of resources that come to play. It's very difficult to have a one-size-fits-all template to lay down on many things. So we were trying to take into account as much flexibility as we could across the board, and that's why some of that's worded that way.
Senator Funky Fromeyer.
Thank you, Senator Howe, for bringing this legislation to us today. I am very much committed to learning is earning. And when you create an excellent environment for learning, that's what I feel like this bill is doing. But what I really love about it as well is we elect our school board. So you've now given so much more local attention to the superintendents and the school boards. And I really think this is excellent. And I just wanted to make a motion on the bill.
There's a motion and a second on the bill. Before we get to a vote, there are certain individuals signed up to speak against. Senator Howe, if you would maybe step to the side for a moment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We're gonna take them one at a time. I'm gonna announce the names in order. Each individual, you got about 3 minutes, and then we'll allow questions to those people speaking against as well. So we'll allow a little bit of time for that, but that's kind of how it will flow. So, Mr. Eddy, you're up first. You've got 3 minutes. Announce your name for the record and please proceed.
Thank you very much, Chairman West. I'm Chuck Eddy, and I'm just speaking for myself. I'm concerned that we're going down the path that authoritarian countries go. I call this the book banning bill because that's exactly what it is. I oppose this bill partially because there's shelves empty in Florida. Now, I recognize that the sponsor said this is civil, not criminal, but teachers are being scared to take books off their shelves. That's wrong. Let me list you some books that have been banned by various people at various times in our country, and it's wrong. Uncle Tom's Cabin, Huckleberry Finn, To Kill a Mockingbird. Here's another good book, Slavery by Another Name, The Re-Enslavement of Black Americans from the Civil War to World War II. Now, coming to one that's more current, a very good book called All Boys Aren't Blue, and it's the coming of age of a black queer young man. It's a very good book. It's suitable for high school. It's not an elementary school book. It's not a middle school book. So Basically, I oppose them. By the way, one other book that has been banned at various times is the Bible. This is a slippery slope, I think, and I think this bill is misguided. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Kate Miller. Please introduce yourself to the committee and please proceed.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Miller. I'm the Advocacy Director at the ACLU of Kentucky, and I use she, her pronouns. Chairman West, members of the Education Committee, thank you for allowing me to testify today. Of course, you can't really bring a bill related to obscenity without the ACLU having something to comment on, so I appreciate your attention. Senate Bill 5 is not a particularly new idea or overly complicated. From our perspective, it is the most recent example of state-sponsored censorship. The debates over whether to allow certain books within schools or students access to certain books within school is really losing the sight of the overarching function of schools to train young people to think for themselves. The First Amendment protects the right to learn for all students, and in 1957, the United States Supreme Court explained the essential role that schools play in helping young people develop into the reflective citizens that a democracy needs to survive. They stated that the nation's future depended upon leaders trained through a wide exposure of robust exchange of ideas, which discovers truth out of a multitude of tongues. And I think all of us can agree in this prolific age of social media that students in particular are receiving a lot of different information, and we've got to equip them to be able to find what's true. Just last year, the Supreme Court emphasized that in schools, learning how to tolerate speech of all kinds is part of learning in a pluralistic society, a trait of character essential to a tolerant citizenry. It appears that this most recent example may be in response to a book or books related to sexual orientation or gender identity. But in years past, the focus has been on race, and in coming years, it will be on something new. But what's not new is that this legislature, irrespective of party, has always and probably will always prioritize censoring viewpoints that are inconsistent with their own. Sometimes we think that actually lawmakers may inadvertently censor materials that are consistent with your values. As the last speaker mentioned, certainly the Bible has shown up on banned book lists, I think as recently as 2016. And given the definition of harmful materials outlined in the bill and thankfully by the sponsor, Senator Howell, there are a number of passages in religious texts that quite explicitly describe genitalia as well as descriptions of sexual acts, some of which are criminal. Senate Bill 5 is part of a long tradition of government censorship. And for those of you all that have been on the committee for a while, you know that the ACLU testifying against them is part of our long tradition of opposing what we believe is an abuse of power. Children's First Amendment rights do not end at the schoolhouse gate. And in the interest of education, I urge you to vote no on Senate Bill 5. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Real quickly, if you'll stay right there. Do we have any questions for Kate, Mrs. Miller? Senator Carroll?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kate, where is the line? If there's a book that promotes pedophilia in a school, is that acceptable?
I think that one thing that this piece of legislation is intended to do is to facilitate conversations between children and their parents.
You're not answering my question.
Well, I think it's without having a specific text.
Yes or no?
Should a book that promotes pedophilia, can you
be allowed in our schools? Yes or no?
Well, I guess you and I might.
Yes or no, please.
I don't know because
Okay.
We have
That's
a book.
all I have, Mr. Chairman.
I have a question.
Senator Meredith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm always interested in people's interpretation of legislation that is different than the intent of the legislation. And I appreciate your testimony, but I think this whole thing is preceded by the comment in an obscene manner. Mm-hmm. Now, the reference you made to the Bible, yeah, there's discussions about sex, but it's not presented in an obscene manner. So isn't that the criteria to be used as whether this material should be provided to our children or not? If it's presented in an obscene manner, should schools be able to have that material?
I think
And also offensive and prevailing standards. All those things qualify these things. It's not just a gross ban on the subject matter. It's these criteria. Do these not apply?
May I respond? So I think that what the ACLU's concern has always been and continues to be is that the government and the citizenry may define obscene differently, and something that may be considered obscene. For example, from the last discussion, I have a book on consent that I talked to my 3-year-old about that I think is appropriate for her age group, but someone from this committee might not feel comfortable using that same material, and it's not my decision to determine that for you, and we don't believe it's your decision to determine it for us.
But there's 3 different criteria here that grade that appropriately. Obscene material, appeal to parents' interest in sex, offensive and prevailing standards. So you don't think those 3 things in combination are sufficient safeguards for this?
I think that they could be. I think it depends on the principal of a school. I think it depends on the particular text that we're discussing.
Should it contend on what parents might think about it?
Absolutely, which is why, the idea of me as a parent going to my school, my child's school, and telling them to ensure that my child doesn't have access to a particular text, I think is an abdication of the responsibility of the parent. They shouldn't put that burden on the school. That's the child and the parent's relationship.
Well, that's exactly what it does. It puts a process in place, a due process in place, so parents can ask to this to be judged, and somebody makes a final determination. It's just not banning books wholesale or literature wholesale. There's a process in place that's being defined here. It uses this criteria to determine what's obscene, what's not, what should be available to young people or not. And goes back to Senator Carroll's question, where's the line here?
Well,
Who determines the line?
We don't think the state should.
Then who should? Should parents? That's a great idea, I believe.
In this particular piece of legislation, it also is incumbent upon the school to ensure that the child does not have access.
It says that the parents protest, ask the principal to intervene. There's a due process outlined here, and the decision's made. What's wrong with that?
Well, I think that's not necessarily just what we're concerned with. It's that irrespective of that decision that's made through that process, it's still this responsibility, from my understanding, of the school to ensure, even if at the end of that process the principal says, look, we do think that this Harry Potter may be an example. Harry Potter should remain in the library. The parent can still come back and say, you need to make sure my child doesn't have access to Harry Potter. And I think that that's an unreasonable responsibility to place on a school system. And it's something that a parent should engage their child on rather than rely on the state to protect their child from those ideas.
But you're saying just the opposite. You're allowing an institution to, in fact, raise our children and make the final determination as to what's right and what's wrong for them. Do parents not have any right in this process?
I think that for my family, it would be completely reasonable for me to meaningfully engage in a conversation with my child over what we think is appropriate and what isn't appropriate and what our values are as a family. An idea isn't something that should scare me. I mean, my child, all of our children are going to be exposed to radical ideas. I'd rather us have conversations about it than ask the school to prohibit them from being able to access something that's inconsistent with my values.
Well, I'd still like to see an answer to Senator Carroll's question about where do we draw the line on this, and I don't think that this bill is unreasonable by any means, but thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And by way of outset, since Senator Carroll and Senator Meredith had a chance to ask about 6 or 7 questions, I've been counting them, I would like the leeway
Could you
to
please
have the
keep
same.
it under 7?
I would ask that as well, sir.
Please proceed. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate that. I will make sure I keep it under 7. Kate, my first question to you is this. What is the definition of obscenity? Does it have a definition?
I think Senator Tichenor defined it earlier in KRS, and I think that was defined by a democratically a different party than the one currently in party.
Well, as I recall, there's a famous court case in which Justice Potter Stewart, who's, by the way, from the Sixth Circuit, once famously said and often quoted that I don't know what obscenity is, that it doesn't have a definition, but I know it when I see it.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the Supreme Court version of obscenity, that there is no definition of it. Okay. My second question to you is this, Kate. Since we don't know what obscenity is, and there are a lot of value judgments here, it is possible, since I do agree this is definitely a book banning bill, there's no question about it. It does have the possibility, as you're saying, of when you have books that deal with lynchings and the sexual mutilation that took place there, that those kind of books could be excluded from schools because of sexual mutilation that often took place in connection with lynchings. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's actually shocking to me that I don't want to waste your all's time, but I wasn't even aware of the sexual mutilation of corpse from lynchings until I was an adult. I was shocked that I didn't learn about that in school, but certainly I could see that, particularly as it pertains to the genitalia of individual who experience that violence being something that may be harmful to minors under this definition.
My third question, and this is my final question. Kate, feel free to disagree with me. Okay? And I'm going to ask a question, then I'm not going to interrupt you, and be courteous enough to give you a chance to respond. But it seems to me that the whole purpose of education is to allow people to be exposed to a myriad of ideas, an amphitheater of subjects. Some you may not agree with, but some you may disagree with. And it seems to me that what this bill really does is frustrate that amphitheater of ideas that is part and parcel, the essence of education. What's your viewpoint on this bill regarding to that notion of education?
I mean, I don't think I could summarize it any better myself, and that we believe that, and I think, as I've stated, the Supreme Court has articulated that very idea that we need to have, much like we're having today in this committee room, a robust exchange of ideas from different perspectives.
3 questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Thomas. We appreciate that. Next, we have on the docket here Miranda Stovall. I'm sorry. If you could come back. I'm sorry. I skipped over Senator Tishner. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
I'll try to keep it short.
She was on the list.
Thank you. Mr. Eddy, the book they were referring to with pedophilia, and it's Lomboy, so you can check that out at your local school library.
Okay.
So, and Senator Thomas, there is a definition of pornography that you're talking about, and that was referenced by that Supreme Court ruling, and you'll know it when you see it was specifically in regards to pornography. And obscenity has been defined clearly in our statutes, but it's also been defined in U.S. Code as well. I just sent something to you. You can flip it over. Do you believe that needs to be in our children's classrooms? Do you think that is inappropriate, or can you give some type of explanation for that? That is in a book called Let's Talk About It.
It appears to be a graphic description related to masturbation.
That's exactly what it is.
I could see this.
Really?
I mean, it depends on, I think, the age group of individuals, and I would understand if parents felt uncomfortable talking to their children about masturbation, but I think it's an appropriate conversation for people to engage in, including individuals who are in Kentucky schools.
So you feel like a teacher should teach children in the school system how to masturbate. How would you not define that as grooming?
I think that it's the I think that what we're talking about here is whether or not students should be prohibited from accessing certain materials, not whether or not teachers are required to educate students on how to masturbate.
So with this being available for distribution in a school, you feel like materials on masturbation should be allowed in the school for distribution?
I think, Senator Tishner, Kentucky has, I think we're number 5 in rates of sexual abuse.
Exactly, yes.
And I think part of why I'm talking to my 3-year-old about consent is because I need my child to be able to confidently and accurately describe incidents that may be inappropriate or may be unsafe. And I think that students having an understanding of their sexuality and their sexual health makes them safer and more equipped to, and more empowered, because I think one of the reasons people don't talk about sexual abuse and sexual assault is because of the shame that you feel that you were somehow responsible or guilty for what happened to you. And so I think having open and honest conversations about sexuality empowers my child to be able to stand up for herself and talk to me or a trusted adult when something wrong happens to her, God forbid.
And I think you're making our point for us. You as the parent are having those discussions with your child. And that's what this bill is going to return the parents' right to be able to have these discussions. And when you're talking about a high sexual abuse rate in this state, I would argue clearly that when we're desensitizing children to sexual things and making this content available in schools, you're opening the door for sexual abuse. You're giving kids, you're desensitizing them simply to sexual things in a way, in a place, in a manner, in a public school where it doesn't belong. That is a parent's responsibility to expose them when the parents feel the child is ready. The parent might not feel the child is ready in 9th grade or in 6th grade where this book could be found to see some of these things within a public school being funded by public tax dollars.
I mean, I think that would be a good opportunity to have a conversation. I mean, we all are listening to the same radio stations and watching the same television. Our kids are flooded with descriptions of sexual activity, and many of which are inconsistent with our own values, which vary widely. I mean, probably you and I share some, have some consensus over what would be appropriate for our child or not. But when my child is exposed to something that isn't appropriate, we have a conversation then and there about why we don't think it's appropriate. We don't try to shut the conversation down and keep her from talking to us about it.
Again, you are having the conversation, not the teacher, not the librarian, not the school. It's you as a parent having that conversation and regulating what they do see on television and what access they have to those types of materials.
That'll have to be the last word in this segment. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Miranda Stovall. Good morning. You have 3 minutes, and please proceed. Yes. If you would introduce yourself for the record, proceed.
Hi, I'm Miranda Stovall. Thank you guys for allowing me to speak to you today on this bill. I appreciate this bill very much because I'm a mother of 4 children who have all been in public school at one point or another. In February of 2022, I started a review of the book Gender Queer by Maya Kobabe in JCPS. Following that policy with JCPS, which you all have a copy of in that packet, it took me 8 months and help from a lawyer for one book. The final decision was made by the JCPS SBDM Board of Appeals on September 26th, 2022. You also have a copy of that final written decision in your packet. While in the review of the instructional material process, the book was still available to children. More copies of that book were ordered in the district, and more titles featuring inappropriate content were also added to libraries. The process to get these books into schools is quick and easy, and the process to remove them is grueling. Most parents don't even know what is in their child's library, and even if they do look on the online catalog, the books have no description of what the content truly is. For example, Gender Queer contains graphic pictures of oral sex with adult sex toys. Pictures, illustrations. It has advertisements for kink.com. and sex toy shops. Tricks by Ellen Hopkins contains explicit sexual activities, including child rape and abuse, heavy drug use and alcohol with minors or by minors, adult and child prostitution. But those facts are not mentioned on the backs of these books or in any summaries of the books. So when you're looking through your child's online catalog, you're not truly understanding what's in these books. So these 5 books, and this is just a small sampling of the books that contain adult sexual content, things that adults should probably only view. I can't read these books to you or show them to you because they will violate FCC regulations. During my dispute process with Genderqueer and JCPS, the news couldn't show the book Genderqueer. So nobody knew what I was truly talking about. And these books are available. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. But it's okay for minor children to have these in our school libraries without parental knowledge or consent. So if the parents don't know, the kids are just going to check them out, and then your child's exposed, and what do you do then? If it's something that you would not prefer your child to have access to. I agree that parents need to have conversations with their kids. I have conversations with my 4 children all the time. But being forced into a conversation because my child checked out a book from the school library where I'm supposed to send my child and trust that this type of content is not going to expose her to something that I don't think she's ready for. I lost my train of thought, I'm sorry. So I appreciate this bill very much, I really do. We need transparency, we need accountability. Ultimately, we need to be offering students age-appropriate books that don't get parents shut down for reading it at a school board meeting for being obscene.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have up Nicole Little. I apologize. It does say you're signed up. But gotcha. Duly noted. So that is all the testimony we have for and against on Senate Bill 5. Senator Howe, if you want to come back to the table, and we're not going to take any more questions. I think the issue's been covered, and we have other bills we need to move on. So on Senate Bill 5, we have a motion by Senator Funky Fromeyer. We have a second by Senator Wilson. We will now take the vote. Please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Funky Fromeyer.
Aye.
Senator Givens.
Aye.
Senator Higdon. Senator Meredith.
Aye.
Senator Neal. Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to explain my no vote.
Please proceed.
Mr. Chair, this is a book banning bill, and there's no way that I, as someone who's gone through high school and college and values education and gotten all my children educated, could go along with this. I think the whole purpose of education, the whole purpose of being exposed, is to learn different views, different subject matters, different content, and then be able to rationally and critically discern what you think is proper behavior or proper conduct and what you think isn't. I'm very proud of the fact, and I'm now speaking as a parent, that I had these discussions with my children when they were 14, 15, 16, and 17, and watched them grow into very mature, rational, responsible, independent adults. I mentioned this last year. We had the CRT discussion about how we're going to slowly go downward in the path of how what we're going to say is allowable in education, what we're saying is not. I cannot, again, support any bill that frustrates and limits the education of our children. And for that reason, I vote no.
Senator Tishner.
A resounding aye.
Senator Williams.
Aye.
Senator Wilson. Senator Wise.
Aye.
Chair West.
Aye. Senate Bill 5, as amended by committee substitute, passes with a 11-1 vote. Thank you, Senator Howell, for your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Yep. I'm going to call an audible. Senator Carpenter can thank me later. We have Senate Bill 54, act related to keys. I believe this subject has been through the interim committee process many times, and you know the deal, so if you would announce your name for the record and please proceed.
Senator Jared Carpenter from the 34th District, and I don't know what it's going to cost me, but I'm willing to pay, Mr. Chairman. I remember how important this committee was. I served on it many years, so I appreciate your all service on the committee. It's always a tough issues, but important to our youth, so I do appreciate everybody being here. This bill is a basic bill. Senate Bill 54 is about keys dollars, and it's about the dollars going towards proprietary schools, and those schools are important to our districts. This morning, before I come here, most of you all know my construction background, what I do for a living. I was on a job site before I rolled up here, and I looked around at the people working, and I realized I'm almost the youngest guy at 45 on the job site. And I realized that, we need new people. We need people every day. Senator Stivers and I just had a conversation about the construction industry and what's going on all across our state, and we're needing people. So this funds allows the opportunity for people to use money for our top 5 job priorities. And that also, it includes agriculture. Agriculture, is one of our key industries. A proprietary school in my district is farriers. If Senator Thayer was here, he would be able to tell you about how important farriers are to the horse industry, and so that's another key industry for people who don't want to go to college. I'm the only college graduate in my family. My family had been successful as painting contractors, so there's plenty of opportunities to make a good living without getting a college degree. I encourage it. I think it's important, but I also understand from my job site this morning that we need to make sure that we're helping people get into job opportunities, that there's jobs available. And not only just jobs available, but there's great opportunities to make a really good living for their families. And so the important top 5 job sectors include healthcare, that's CNAs, phlebotomists, advanced manufacturing, engineer type degree or from the preparatory school or a certificate, transportation. All of us here through COVID realized how important transportation for products was. It was almost impossible to get your product because there was such a big demand from online shopping, and so CDL drivers is a huge part of what this bill is about, and making sure that folks can get their CDL license to make sure they can continue to get products to us. The business services is a big part of this, paralegal services, IT. Senator Givens, I know, is always interested in the IT industry, and like I said earlier, the construction industry, plumbing, HVAC, electrical services. One of the Building Institute in Fayette County offers great programs, and that's one of the folks that could benefit from this service. So, when we send kids through high school, and if they want to go into this career field, why shouldn't they be able to use those SEEK dollars to make sure they're job and career ready and be able to get a quality job? So I don't think there's a better use of this tax dollar, these services, these monies, than for a bill such as this. And so with that being said,
motion on the bill.
I've learned also to hush whenever somebody makes a motion.
Do we have any questions on Senate Bill 54? With that excellent presentation, there are no questions on Senate Bill 54. We have a motion from Senator Wise. We have a second from Senator Wilson. Mariah, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Funke Fromeyer. Aye. Senator Givens. Aye. Senator Higdon. Senator Meredith. Aye. Senator Neal. Senator Stivers. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Senator Thomas. Senator Tishner. Senator Williams.
Aye.
Senator Wilson.
Aye.
Senator Wise. Chair West.
Aye. Senate Bill 54 passes with a vote of 12 ayes and 0 no votes. Thank you, Senator Carpenter.
Thank you, members of the committee.
Next up, we have Senate Bill 7. Senator Mills, if you would move to the table. an act relating to the administration of payroll systems and declaring an emergency. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Robbie Mills. I'm State Senator from the 4th District in Northwest Kentucky.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Committee, Senate Bill 7 is simply designed to stop the practice of public employee unions using taxpayer-funded payroll systems to collect political contributions from its members. State law prohibits us as legislators from using public funds, time, or personnel for partisan campaign activities. The same standard should be applied to all government agencies. If Senate Bill 7 is passed, Kentucky will be following the path of other states who have acted to prevent public coffers from being used to collect private political donations. I believe the vast majority of Kentuckians believe that their school systems should be focused on providing a high-quality education for their students. They should not be involved in collecting and distributing money for political action committees. However, some collective bargaining agreements specifically authorize this type of collection. These political collections are not designated by the employee as to where they go, like a United Way contribution would be. They are funneled to specific PACs of the union's choosing. In recent elections, all 4 JCTA-backed JCPS school board members were reelected because Better Schools Kentucky, JCTA's PAC, pumped in over $750,000 in campaign dollars into the 4 campaign accounts. Better Schools Kentucky is the best funded state regulated PAC in Kentucky because the access it has to the public payroll system to collect money from its members. Public employers should be focused on using taxpayer resources for the public agency's core mission, not upon collecting political contributions to pass along to a political action committee. Oh, and by the way, several court cases have ruled, including the U.S. Supreme Court, with Ruth Bader Ginsburg ruling that there is no constitutional right to a payroll deduction system for political fundraising. What this bill does not do, let's dispel a few things. This bill does not prohibit state or local agencies from collecting union dues from their union. It does not prohibit the practice of collective bargaining between unions and public agencies. It does not prohibit public employee unions from communicating with their members regarding political issues that are important to them. And finally, it does not prohibit public employees from contributing to a political action committee. They can freely exercise their First Amendment right to contribute with a check or a credit card. Section 4 of the bill does grandfather existing bargaining agreements, so this prohibition will not be effective until existing collective bargaining agreements expire. Mr. Chairman, I would ask that the committee vote yes and end what I think is kind of an inequitable practice here that's going on with collecting these political contributions. And I would be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Senator Mills. Senator Thomas.
Senator Mills, I listened to your presentation, and I've heard things that seem to be diametrically opposed. You indicated that the purpose of your bill is to prevent people from having payroll deductions,
No.
which is their money. This is
No.
their money.
The purpose is political contribution.
But it's let me be clear. First of all, it's the workers' money, correct? It's their money they're earning, and then they decide how they want it to be distributed to.
It is.
Pay for annuities, pay for
Right.
Other allowed deductions, pay for union dues. Okay. correct?
Correct. Yes.
I don't understand the distinction, and help me out here, between being able to be allowed to pay for union dues and then the money being used to go to a union PAC. What's the difference here? Help me out here.
Well, the difference is that, you know, we as legislators, you know that your LA can't help you politically. It's nonpartisan. We do not allow the government, a public agency, to use the mechanism to be involved in politics and to collect political contributions and funnel those contributions to that political action committee. That's what's occurring here. We're using the government mechanism to collect and feather out and funnel contributions to those organizations. We're not allowed to do it in the legislature. I think it's only fair that all public agencies should not be allowed to do that as well. That, you know, that mechanism is paid for by taxpayer dollars, nonpartisan taxpayer dollars. They should be focused on their mission and not focused on furthering a political point or political idea or a political party.
Are you finished, Senator Thomas?
Yes.
Senator Funky Fromeyer?
That is helpful. Thank you. What I was curious, as you indicated, though, a union dues could be drawn. And if that union has determined that they're drawing $10 a month and the union determined that one of those dollars is going to a PAC, how is that delineated?
Well, it's going to the union. The dues are being collected and goes to the union. They decide how they spend their money. These contributions are actually going directly to the Political Action Committee.
That's a helpful distinction.
Mm-hmm.
I see no further questions. Senator Mills, I have a couple of questions really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then after my questions, there are three folks signed up in opposition. We'll bring them up. But if Senate Bill 7 makes it through the process and achieves final passage, a teacher is paid through the payroll process. They get their paycheck.
Right.
There's nothing to prevent them from providing money to the education PAC of their choice.
No, none at all. Everybody has that right to contribute however they would like to. It just will not flow through the government mechanism.
So there's going to be nothing preventing them to continue to give to that PAC that's the money is going to currently.
Correct.
It just gives them an additional choice later on. They could also, if they chose to, send that to a different PAC, maybe that they felt personally was better served them. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you so much. We have on the list next. I'm going to let you all decide how you want to handle this. We have Mary Rubel from KEA and we have Eddie Campbell from KEA. You can either speak together or you can speak separately, however you would choose to do so. You know how this works.
Thank you, Senator
State your name for the record and please proceed.
Hello, committee. I'm Eddie Campbell. I'm a Midland High School music teacher.
If you could make sure that mic's on there.
I'm having trouble today with
there you
people
go.
Hearing me.
I can hear you now.
My name's Eddie Campbell. I'm a Midland High School music teacher from Knox County, currently on release serving as president of the Kentucky Education Association.
My name's Mary Rubel. I am the executive director of the Kentucky Education Association.
Senator West and committee, thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today. For over 160 years, KEA has advocated for public education in the state of Kentucky. KEA is a member-driven organization and not a group of people that work just down the street. Within our organization, members elect representatives to our governing bodies, and those representatives determine the policies and the legislative positions based on what they know about working conditions, student learning conditions, and concerns of their colleagues. Every position we take and every action that we organize directly reflects the interest of our KEA members. We also support the growth and success for upcoming educators like the many aspiring educators who are in our room today. No educator is forced to join KEA. Educators make an informed decision to voluntarily join. Members have had the option for deducting dues and assessments through payroll deduction for decades without any issues. And we don't see any legitimate reason for that to change. We find it interesting that SB 7 has an emergency clause. We're not sure what the emergency is. I want to note that local school boards make decisions and policies all the time for direct payroll deductions for a variety of purpose. I know that Senate Bill 7 focuses particularly on PAC donations. When an educator chooses KEA, they can also choose whether to make a contribution to our PAC or not. It is completely voluntary and is entirely separate from the cost of dues. It is a personal decision, like any other financial decision that an individual chooses to spend their hard-earned money on. I'm just going to close by saying, our Kentucky educators are one of the most highly skilled and degreed workforces in the Commonwealth. They're well informed about their professions, and most are involved voters. They make hundreds, perhaps thousands of decisions every single day for their primary purpose, which is to provide Kentucky's public schools and public school students with a quality education. We trust our students, our Kentucky future, to our educators. And our educators should not be told or need a permission to decide on or how they will spend their own hard-earned money. I do ask you that you vote no on Senate Bill 7 today. Thank you for your time, and I will turn it over to our Executive Director, Mary Rubel, for any additional comments.
I am just here to answer questions and help Eddie do that.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We have one question right now. Senator Funky Fromeyer.
Thank you for your explanation. And as a financial advisor, I'm very aware of the desire to put your dollars into your priorities. Would then, with these PACs, they have an opportunity to do an automatic draw from the bank account that automatically the payroll system described by Senator Mills is paying the educator? Those dollars land in their bank account, and then they could do an automatic draw from their bank account for that contribution. And that way we're not putting that political emphasis in using the payroll system.
That's absolutely entirely possible. I think for us and for the educators that are affected by this, I don't know all the rules for legislators. I will say that straight up. I do understand generally that you can't use your paid staff to help you fundraise. That's, I think, what I got from comments earlier. We're not. We are communicating directly with the educators who are making decisions about how to spend their money. And nobody on staff at any school district is helping us do that. They're simply directing money where the educator asks them to do that. In the same way, I believe you all can make payroll deductions, probably, and direct money from your own paychecks that you earn here to go to other places as well. So the other question that we have is, what is the emergency? This has been going on for decades. It's been legally allowed for decades. And now, suddenly, probably because of the way you perceive that money's being spent, because you disagree with the way the money's being spent, now there seems to be a need to do this and do it quickly. And we just don't understand that. Our members don't understand it.
No further questions on the list. I'll ask one question. My question is for Mr. Campbell. Educate me a little bit on when a teacher is hired or you start the new year and they're filling out their paperwork, right? What is the process for? You mentioned that they agree to the PAC contribution. Just describe that process. Do they have to sign off? I hereby agree to make this PAC contribution. Just if you could just briefly describe how that
Yes, our membership card contains an option for an individual to contribute to PAC or to opt out of that contribution to PAC. So it is totally up to them. It's very clear on our membership form whether or not they would like to make that contribution or not. So the total dues obligation, if they choose, includes a PAC contribution, and that is what is automatically assessed if they break it over multiple months. So it's broken down through their each contribution or each of the pay for the monthly dues assessment.
So I'm assuming there's a yes or no checkbox, and there's an amount shown. This is your PAC contribution. Is that how
there is a breakdown of dues? Yes.
I guess the question I'm asking is it different from, like, do you have dues, and then is the PAC contribution amount separate, where the teacher can see, like, this part of my paycheck is going to dues, and this part of my paycheck is going to the PAC? Is that how it's shown?
May I?
Okay.
On the membership form, there is a dues amount shown. And then there is a paragraph that explains that a certain amount of that, and I believe right now it's $31, goes to KeyPack. If you don't want to contribute to KeyPack, you check a box. That's all it takes. And then when we process the membership form, the amount that you actually saw, if you opt out, is decreased by that amount.
Thank you. There's an opt-out.
Yes.
Yeah, basically. Gotcha. Seeing no further questions, we do have another speaker on this subject in opposition, Nicole Little. She's shaking her head no. I'm sorry.
If you want me to say something.
Nicole was totally shocked on that. So
Again.
I apologize. Brian O'Neill. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian O'Neill. I'm the president of the Louisville Professional Firefighters and the legislative director for the Kentucky Professional Firefighters. I thank you for the time to talk about this. Really, I just wanted to clarify a couple of points, and actually Senator Funky Fromeyer had a question about that. We do this with several of our fire departments across the state. It is the individual's money. It is the individual's choice what they want to do with it. The employers have never had a problem with this issue, and something to be clear about. So when our members sign up, they have their union dues if they choose to join. There's a completely separate form if they want to put more money towards the Muscular Dystrophy Association, if they want YMCA dues to be taken out, and if they want to contribute to the PAC. If they choose to contribute to that PAC, all of those decisions on endorsements or donations or anything are made by those people. So the idea that this money is funneled to some PAC that they wouldn't have control over, they have absolute control over what that does. We're a very bipartisan organization. Also, right now, that is all monitored. That account is monitored by the Kentucky Registration of Election Finance. There are quarterly reports that are turned in, and if there are any issues or problems, it is 100% on us to pay any penalties, to face any fines, or any discipline. It's not on the employer whatsoever. So it's our responsibility, and it would be our PAC chairman's responsibility as well. So again, I don't want to try to overinflate what this means. This is not a death knell to our PAC fund. I think that several people pointed out that, yes, our people would still have the opportunity to do it on their own if they so wished, but it certainly is it's a hurdle. It's a stumbling block, and I think it's a solution that's looking for a problem.
Thank you so much. No questions in this segment?
All right, thank you.
Thank you for presenting. There are no Senator Mills, if you would please step forward. As with the last bill, I think we've covered everything. So if I'm going to call for a vote on Senate Bill 7, do we have a motion? We have a motion from Senator Givens. We have a second from Senator Meredith. I saw him first. Mariah, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll,
Vote aye, Mr. Chairman. Look forward to further discussion.
Senator Funky Fromeyer, Senator Givens, Senator Higdon, Senator Meredith, Senator Neal, Senator Stivers, Senator Thomas.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to explain my no vote.
Please proceed.
You know, Mr. Chair, again, I believe we ought to call these bills what they are. This is clearly an anti-labor bill. One thing is clear. What we're doing today is telling people how they can spend their own money. This is money that they've earned, okay? This is their money. And we're now trying to control how people can spend their own money. One of the biggest payroll deduction agencies that exists is United Way. They get a lot of deductions. And United Way comes up here, and we all know it, and they engage in lobbying, okay? Now, under this legislation, we're not preventing the United Way from coming up here and using some of the monies we donate to them for lobbying. But we're saying that a labor organization who receive a person's money can't engage in payroll deductions if any of the funds are to be used for political activities. I think that's punitive to labor organizations. I think this bill is anti-labor. It's punitive toward public sector employees, and I think it's wrong. That's why I vote no.
Senator Tishner. I'm sorry, Senator Tishner. Senator Williams. Senator Wilson. Senator Wise. Chair West.
Aye. Senate Bill 7 passes with 10 aye votes and 1 no vote with favorable expression. Thank you, Senator Mills. Next, we have before the committee Senate Bill 81. If Senator Bledsoe would step forward and prepare to present. If you would, both please state your name for the record and then proceed.
Thank you. Amanda Mays Bledsoe, Senator 12.
If you could pull that microphone a little, make sure it's on and pull it a little closer, please.
Sorry. Amanda Mays Bledsoe, Senator from District 12.
Thank you.
Coleman Marshall, middle school principal at Lexington Christian Academy.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for committee members for hearing this important item. KRS 158-080 states that except in schools districts operating a year-round school program, the term of the school shall not be for a shorter period in each year than the term of the public school provided in the district in which the child attending the school resides. Now, I am certainly in support for local school districts to have the choice to increase additional instructional days in their calendar above the minimum. However, that decision should have no bearing on the private schools simply because they reside in the same county. This bill simply removes the language which references this requirement. And I'll turn it over for Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Senator. So I would like to speak on behalf of the executive leadership team and the board of directors at Lexington Christian Academy and just say that we currently support this bill because we believe that as a local private school, we should have the say in what our calendar is. But under the current statute, if Fayette County decides to go for 175 school days, we are required to go for 175 school days. And so therefore, we have no authority, we have no voice in the matter because we are not a part of the Fayette County public school system. And so under this bill, this would grant us the opportunity to set the school calendar that benefits us and our constituents. Thank you for hearing.
Thank you. Any questions from members? Motion on the bill. Seeing none, we have a motion. Senator Williams, do you have a question? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Please proceed.
No, I don't have a motion.
Do you have a question?
No, I'm fine.
You're good? Okay. We have a motion on the bill. Senator Givens. We have a second. Senator Stivers. Mariah, please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Funky Fromeyer. Senator Givens.
Aye.
Senator Higdon. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Stivers. Senator Thomas.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to explain my aye vote.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. know, Mr. Chair, I don't have any problems with Lexington Christian Academy or Lexington Catholic or Sayre or the Lexington School, having their own school calendars. I think that's a good thing. I'm familiar with all students that have gone there. Even my children and family members have gone to some of those schools. Okay. I would just like to say to this committee, I am still awaiting the day in which we give public school teachers and public schools some relief from the burdensome regulations and requirements and demands that we put upon them. Okay. I'm still waiting for that day. Okay. But having said all that, I do support this legislation. Senator Bledsoe, I vote aye.
Senator Tishner? Senator Williams?
I'd like to explain.
Please
my
proceed.
vote. I very much, I'm going to pass, and it's because I'm running behind, and I did not look this bill until late last night. I'd like to appreciate the senator from Fayette who was texting me at 11 o'clock, okay? And calling me, and we're having a discussion. But I'm passing because I believe there may be an impact on homeschoolers. We need to discuss it with the staff. Again, this is my fault because I haven't had the chance to do it. But homeschoolers have never been submitted to an hours requirement, just a days requirement was my reading, because we homeschool as private schools. And by adding this language, private and parochial schools are now have an hours requirement, I believe, that's in here. But that's what I want to be convinced by staff that's not the case. So I'm going to pass and get convinced, I'm sure.
Senator Wilson? Senator Wise? Chair West?
Aye. So I saw Senator Bledsoe nodding her head. Well, let's keep moving. Obviously, you two can talk offline, and Senator Williams will have another bite at the apple on the floor with the amendment process if he chooses to do so. But today we'll keep 81 moving. 81 does pass with favorable expression, a vote of 8-0, 1 pass.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other things to come before the committee? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.